Okay, we've got our technical information almost ready. Are we back from commercial yet? Okay. So we're ready to begin the CAWS committee, and I would like to announce that again on September 13th, 2021, Governor Greg Abbott appointed Mr. Richard Clemmer and Mr. Robert Gaunt to the board, and I have appointed Mr. Clemmer as a member of this committee, the Committee on Academic and Workforce Success. I will formally introduce our members at tomorrow's board meeting. I would now like to pass the gavel over to Vice Chair, Ms. Donna Williams, to officially call the meeting of the Committee on Academic and Workforce Success to order. Ms. Williams.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Donna Williams, and I'm the chair of the Committee on Academic Workforce and Success. It is 10:32, October 20th, 2021, and I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Committee on Academic and Workforce Success. Please be aware that this meeting is being broadcast via the Internet. Before we begin, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome those who are joining us via Zoom and ask that they observe the following etiquette. Please state your name before you speak, mute your microphone when not speaking, and keep background noise to a minimum. Members, we'd like to take a moment to welcome Mr. Clemmer to our committee. Welcome, welcome. When I call your name, please announce that you're present. Donna Williams, of course, I'm here. Mr. Clemmer?
Present.
Fred?
Here.
Emma Schwartz? Here. Sam Torn?
Here.
Welcome Wilson?
Here.
And Matthew B. Smith, our student representative. Please
Here.
record in the minutes that we have a quorum. Agenda item number 2 is consideration of approval of the minutes for July 21st, 2021 committee meeting. Do I have a motion for approval of the July 21st, 2021 minutes of the Committee on Academic Workforce and Success?
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The motion passes. I'm looking at you, Mary. Am I doing? I'm good. Okay. Okay, we got this here. Agenda item number 3 is public testimony on committee items relating to the Committee on Academic and Workforce Success. We do not have any registered to testify, so we'll go to the next item. Agenda item number 4 is consideration of approval of the consent calendar. The consent calendar includes non-controversial items that we think can be approved without comment or discussion. This allows us to save time for other items that need more of our attention. Highlighted items in gray are the consent items on the agenda. We're going to take up the consent calendar in 2 parts. Approval of the non-rule consent items and then the rule consent agenda items. Of course, any board member can request that an agenda item be added or removed from the consent calendar. The agenda items listed on the non-rule consent is for this meeting is agenda item 5B, report to the board on school closures and or teach-outs pursuant to Texas Administrative Code, Title 19, Part 1, Chapter 7, Subchapter A, Section 7.75. Are there any agenda items that anyone would like to add to the non-rule portion of the consent calendar? Do I have a motion for approval for the non-rule portion of the consent calendar?
I'll move.
May I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? The motion passes. Members, the next item on the consent calendar are the rule items. The rules placed on the consent calendar are those that are either technical, conforming, or implement non-controversial policies around which there is a consensus. Agenda items 5I1, I2, and I4. Agenda item 5I1, consideration of adopting proposed amendments to Texas Administrative Code, Title 19, Chapter 4, Subchapter A, Rule 4.8 of Board Rules, concerning the excused absence of a person called to required military service. 5I2 is consideration of adopting the proposed amendment to the Texas Administrative Code, Title 19, Part 1, Chapter 4, Subchapter A, Section 4.9 of Board Rules, concerning limitations on the numbers of courses that may be dropped with certain circumstances by undergrad students. And 5I4 is consideration of adopting the proposed repeal to the Texas Administrative Code, Title 19, Part 1, Chapter 5, Subchapter C, Section 5.51 of the Board Rules concerning concerning publishing of doctoral program data. Are there any rules that anyone wants to remove from the rule consent calendar? Do I have a motion for approval of the rule consent calendar?
So moved.
May I have a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded. Second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Did you oppose? Hearing none. Mr. Thorne,
Yes.
did you oppose?
No, I
Or
did
your
not.
nay- Okay, your nay came in a little slow. Okay. All right, thank you. The motion passes. Yeah. Agenda item 5A is consideration of adopting the Certification Advisory Council recommendation relating to a request from Burrell College of Osteopathic Medicine for a second certificate of authority to grant degrees in Texas. Dr. Tina Jackson, Assistant Commissioner for Workforce Education, will present this item and be available to answer questions. Dr. Jackson?
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. I'm Tina Jackson, Assistant Commissioner of Workforce Education. Burrell College of Osteopathic Medicine is seeking a second certificate of authority for its Regional Education Center in El Paso, out of which it coordinates clinical clerkships, rotations in the El Paso metropolitan area. Burrell's Doctor of Osteopathic Medicine degree has programmatic accreditation by the American Osteopathic Association Commission on Osteopathic College Accreditation. It is working towards institutional accreditation by the Higher Learning Commission. The first certificate of authority by Burrell was approved by the board in 2019. Prior to the board issuing the first certificate of authority, Burrell entered into a memorandum of understanding with Texas Tech University Health Science Center at El Paso as to the scope of its operations in Texas. As part of the review process, Burrell's El Paso Hospital training partners confirmed there were adequate clinical faculty available and sufficient to train both Burrell and Texas Tech students training in the El Paso area. This MOU remains in place. The second certificate of authority will be valid from December 2021 to December 2023. The Certification Advisory Council has recommended approval. The board will also be considering adopting rules to implement changes to requirements for both certificates of authority and certificates of authorization. These changes were made via Senate Bill 1490 in the 87th regular Texas legislative session. Senate Bill 1490 requires applicants for certificates of authority to provide information regarding capacity and market need, faculty and resources, meeting standards for professional development degrees, and sufficient placements for field-based learning. The site visit team for the second certificate of authority found Burrell had met all the requirements and standards for operations. As part of the review process, the second certificate of authority, Burrell El Paso Hospital training partners once again confirmed there are an abundance of clinical faculty available and sufficient to train both Burrell and Texas Tech students training in the El Paso area. This concludes my report.
Do we have any questions for Dr. Jackson? All right. Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the request from Burrell College of Osteopathic Medicine for a second certificate of authority to grant degrees in Texas?
I'll move.
Been moved. May I have a second? Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? The motion passes. Agenda item 5B was approved on consent. Agenda item 5C is consideration of adopting the Texas General Academic Institution Increasing Successful Community College Transfer Report, General Appropriations Act, Senate Bill 1, Article 3, Section 47, 87th Texas Legislature Regular Session. Dr. Stacy Silverman, Assistant Commissioner for Academic and Health Affairs, will present this item and be available to answer questions. Dr. Silverman.
Thank you, Madam Chair Williams, and good morning, members of the board. The General Appropriations Act directs the public universities to submit an annual report to the coordinating board that details institutional efforts to increase the number, persistence, and success of community college transfer students. The legislative directive requires the coordinating board to collect and analyze the institutional reports and performance data. This report summarizes the actions taken by the public universities over the past year to increase the number, persistence, and success of community college transfer students. The report also includes staff analysis of the institutional responses and institutional data from existing coordinating board management reports. This is the 11th report, and it is due to the legislature by November the 1st. A survey was distributed to the public universities in the spring, which asked about information regarding efforts to serve current and future transfer students. These efforts included local and regional articulation agreements with faculty collaboration, community college program enhancements, student outreach and advising, website information, targeted financial aid, university student success programs, degree program alignment, and participation in statewide initiatives. The report also recommends that the coordinating board continue to work closely with universities and community colleges to fully implement all requirements of Senate Bill 25, which was passed by the 86th Texas Legislature, and to develop transparent, student-centered academic pathways through the new Texas Transfer Framework. While many aspects of Senate Bill 25 have been implemented, over the next 12 months, the coordinating board should work to ensure that the requirement for each institution of higher education develop at least one recommended course sequence for each undergraduate certificate or degree program is fully implemented. Given the importance of the new Texas Transfer Framework, the coordinating board should work diligently to revise the existing field of study curricula into the new Texas Transfer Framework with a goal of revising no fewer than 10 field of study curricula over the next 12-month period. Institutions, both universities and community colleges, should commit to implementing requirements of SB 25 and the Texas Transfer Framework, including increasing awareness of these new transfer requirements with student, faculty, and staff, and encouraging positive participation in these statewide transfer initiatives. I'll conclude by thanking the institutions for submitting their information and extend my sincere appreciation to all the work the institutions have done to make sure their transfer students acclimate to their campuses, especially given the difficulties they've faced under the COVID pandemic. The recommendation is for approval.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Silverman?
Ms. Williams, there are a couple of issues I'd just like to sort of underline from Stacy's presentation, because of course the transfer is one of our highest priorities, streamlining student transfer, and something that I appreciate that the board has a regular heartbeat of review of issues at each of the quarterly meetings now around transfer. First, I want to underline that the work that is underway right now on the Texas Transfer Framework is going to be very important. That we have the first 2 work groups underway. We've set down a marker to have 10 of these transfer pathways in place over this next year. That's going to be very important for students to have a clear path to be able to transfer up to 60 hours. So in essence, it's a framework for a Texas Associate's degree for transfer. So 10 pathways would capture the vast majority of the transfer students and provide them a clear path for the courses that they need to take, so that they would minimize courses that wouldn't meet degree requirements, and help them be much more efficient in their time to degree. So some of the findings are concerning about transfer students taking longer to complete than native students. So we're hoping that streamlining the pathways, making those much more transparent for students, is going to be an important tool in the toolbox. We're also working closely with the institutions so that those recommended course sequences can be used in the context of student advising, and we'll be partnering with the institutions to stand up a new advising tool for the institutions, so students can compare and query those recommended course sequences, again, so they can streamline the pathways and reduce the excess hours that they might take. And then we will also, over this next year, thanks to some of the allocation of the GEAR Fund, be partnering with institutions to pilot some portable financial aid for transfer students. So we will have a number of important initiatives underway that I'm excited about, enthusiastic about, for helping to address these issues. But again, all developed and being implemented in close partnership, both with our 2-year institutions and our 4-year institutions. And I appreciate the board's continued attention and prioritization of these issues around streamlining transfer.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion to adopt the Texas General Academic Institutions Increasing Successful Community College Transfer Report, General Appropriations Act, Senate Bill 1, Article 3, Section 47, 87th Texas Legislature Regular Session? May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item 5D is the report on activities of the Applied Texas Advisory Committee. Members, this is an informational only item. Ms. Jamie Hansard.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Hansard, Vice President for Enrollment Management, Texas Tech University, and Dr. Chantel Blake, Associate Dean, Enrollment Services Registrar, Dallas County Cedar Valley, will provide a brief summary of committee activities and be available to answer any questions. Ms. Hansard.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing us to be here today to provide a brief update. The purpose of the Apply Texas Advisory Committee, as you know, is to discuss and vote on changes that may be needed to the applications for the upcoming application cycle. The committee also addresses additional initiatives to strengthen student participation and access into higher education. Over the 2020-2021 year, the Apply Texas Advisory Committee met 3 times. We met in October, February, and May. Each meeting was conducted in a virtual format. During the meeting, the advisory committee reviewed change requests from participating institutions due to the implementation of the Amazon Web Services platform for the 2022 application cycle. Most changes were reviewed and deferred to the next application cycle to allow the technical team to focus on the implementation of the new application platform. However, there were 2 requests that were approved by the advisory committee over this past year. The first request that was approved was the expanded option of the parent information questions to all application types. Previously, this question was only on the U.S. freshman application. With this change, parent information questions are now asked on all application types as an optional question, but it continues to be a required question on the U.S. freshman application type. So this change was approved and implemented. The second item that the advisory committee approved was a request from the coordinating board to add a question that will allow students applying to public 2-year colleges to self-identify in one of the Perkins 5 special population categories and request available local services. And this item was approved. On June 9th, the Apply Texas Advisory Committee and the Apply Texas team hosted a virtual preview of the Apply Texas application platform. The preview provided an overview and progress of the Apply Texas Advisory Committee strategic planning, as well as introduced the improvements and changes made to the application, to the administrative suite, and to the counselor suite. The event was recorded and it was shared with over 1,000 registrants. The general changes to the Apply Texas application included databases being moved to the Amazon Web Services cloud, a new application site, as well as a mobile-friendly application site for students. The new application platform launched on July 1st for the 2022 application cycle. Due to the implementation of Amazon Web Services, the majority of the work of the advisory committee over this past year has been focused on strategic planning. So I'll ask my colleague, Dr. Blake, for an update about the strategic planning.
Thank you so much. Our committee has been able to improve the readability of the Apply Texas application and offer a more simplified setup for account users. The committee has also been able to increase optimization for mobile users, as you stated before. Additionally, the school search tool was enhanced to become more user-friendly. The committee has improved copy functionality, and residency questions have been rearranged to ensure they're all located on the same page. And as a result, completion time has been significantly decreased. Also, clicks have been decreased by our users. We've also begun implementation of an auto-save feature to enhance our user experience. And we've also made sure that we will continue to work on strategic planning and ensuring that our application is as friendly and usability is as easy as possible for all of our users.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions? I have one question. In making it more user-friendly, will the students be able to fill out the application on their cell phone, or does it have to be on a computer?
Yes, so that was part of the migration to Amazon Web Services so that it would be mobile friendly and students can complete the application on a mobile device such as their cell phone, an iPad, things of that nature.
Good, so they won't have any excuse, right?
We hope not.
All right, thank you. Hearing no questions, we'll move on to agenda item 5E, The report is on the activities of the Advisory Council on Post-Secondary Education for Persons with Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. Members, this is an informational item only. Christine Price, Coordinator, Skills, Training, and Education for Personal Success, STEPS, Austin Community College, will provide a brief summary of council activities and be available to answer questions. Welcome, Ms. Price.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Officer, and the other committee members of the Committee on Academics and Workforce Success for having me. It's truly an honor to be here. I'm going to give a little overview. The Advisory Council was charged with studying the accessibility of higher education for persons with intellectual developmental disabilities, give advice regarding resolving barriers, and then identify, evaluate, and develop recommendations to address these barriers. So this is our second year, and so this year we have maintained quarterly meetings, continued to review research, accessibility policies, and marketing and outreach. We participated in the 60/30 Texas Refresh virtual listening sessions. We created letters to the coordinating board and to students and parents regarding the council's interest in inclusion and equity for the IDD population of Texas. And we also created a database of the IDD programs here in Texas and recommended the addition of others. I do want to speak on that for a second because it is amazing because Texas is leading the way in post-secondary education for individuals with IDD. When I started in this field 12 years ago, there was only 3, and now I think we had 23 at our last count. So that is amazing. We are up there with New York and and California, so that's something to really celebrate. We are also creating a comprehensive list of agencies and entities that will help individuals. As you know, college students, regardless of ability, have lots of things stacked against them, and so that even is exponentiated when you have a disability. And so trying to find agencies and any resources that will help these students get to college, transportation, barriers, anything like that. So we're trying to create a resource list. That's what we're doing right now for students that will be on the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board website for students. That comprehensive college list will also be there. We are also working on recommendations for the TEA and TWC, as well as asking schools to add college to the IEPs, their final IEPs before they graduate. This way ensuring that they go to college. We believe, we're very passionate that college is for all individuals, including students with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Excuse me. Our council is comprised of 17 wonderfully passionate individuals who are experts in their field in higher education, working directly with individuals with intellectual disabilities, but we also have parents and students on our board so that we get a wide range of input from everybody that our council is affecting. We have made several recommendations to the board, including replacing the IDD term to neurodevelopmental disorders. This would clarify the targeted population and would include autism spectrum disorder, attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder, intellectual and developmental delay, and specific learning disabilities. We are also asking that recommend that the increase of number of students with neurodevelopmental disabilities help us increase the attendance of students going into post-secondary education programs, identify college readiness goals for students with disabilities. This is a fairly new field, and so best practices, we're also asking best practices be identified. All of us who run programs like this, we've pretty much created everything from our experience. So, getting some best practices in there would be excellent, especially in creating more and more of these programs in the future for individuals. Also require that post-secondary programs maintain accessibility information. We found it very difficult to find information about these programs on the college's websites. Even though a lot of the colleges had programs, it was difficult to find them. So having those colleges highlight that, and like I said, identifying and replicating best practices. And that was really, that's what we've been working on. We're very passionate. I happen to be a parent of a child who has IDD, as well as having ADHD myself, so I have been through it on so many different levels, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to let me speak today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Members, this, as I said, this is for informational only. Are there any questions? No. Thank you, and thank you for your work. Moving on to agenda item 5F is consideration of adopting the report of effectiveness of the Advised Texas Program. Jarrell Booker, Assistant Commissioner for College Readiness and Success, will present this item and be available to answer questions. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Jarrell Booker. I'm presenting on 5F on seeking adoption of the annual report for the Advised Texas effectiveness. So we'll go to the first slide. As some of you know, I know we have new members, since 2010, our Advised Texas program, we've partnered with the National College Advising Corps, which is a large national nonprofit that started in North Carolina that has implemented near-peer advising across the United States. Texas actually ended up being their largest participant and partner in the United States. What we have is we provide near-peer advisors in high schools that have low college-going rates, high minority participation rates, and we target these low-performing schools for advising to help support the counselors. Many of you also know that our counselor ratio is, one counselor to 500 or to 500 students. So the advisors are very helpful in addressing that counselor-student ratio. Currently, Advised Texas is funded by a number of different sources, state funds that we receive from our legislature, what we're very grateful for. The College Advising Corps raises funds also, as well as our institutions of higher education and our school districts. We support over 120 high schools currently, and we partner with 4 institutions, 2 publics, the University of Texas at Austin and Texas A&M University, as well as 2 privates, Trinity University and TCU, and have done so for quite some time. Our advisors, which makes this program very special, there's a very rigorous process in selecting advisors and very rigorous training that they receive throughout the year to make sure they're providing the students with the best advising, which we call best fit. So it's not they're guiding them to one particular institution or not. It's basically a best fit for the students, sometimes 2 years, sometimes 4 years, and so forth. Every year we're required to provide an annual report to the legislature, which Dr. Eric Bettinger with Stanford University actually conducts a randomized controlled trial for us. This year our most recent class that we have, the most recent data is 2019 class, although we do have participation data for the 2020 class. And just over the last 3 or 4 years, we've seen positive impacts from this program. The percentage points are slight, but the impacts are continuous and steady, particularly for this population that we have. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. Also, our advisors deal with filling out applications. Madam Chair, you talked about getting it on their mobile apps and so forth through Apply Texas. They help with that. They help with the counselors in the counselor suite. Now there's a new high school graduation requirement for completing FAFSA. They're helping with that requirement also. So these advisors are carrying a lot of weight in these institutions, in these high schools that require more support than the average high school. A couple of things I just want to point out on the slide. We continue to see steady increase of college-going rates for African American students. This has continued to be the case over the last few years. It's a small percentage point, but it's statistically valid from this randomized controlled trial. We've also seen increases of Hispanic students, particularly around two-year colleges over this past cycle, which is also statistically important for us. But what's interesting, which is odd from previous years, is they flipped. The African American students didn't do as well for two-year colleges, but very well in four-year. And then the Hispanics did very well for the two-year and not the four-year. So we have to go back and look at why that kind of flip-flop. But the increases were high enough to take the whole group higher for this year than the previous year. So I think it's about 1.6 percentage point increase previously. And when I say previously, it's based off of comparing these students with similar students who don't get advised Texas advisors. It's not just any school. We're actually really looking at the students who we're trying to serve and seeing if we're actually making impact for those particular students. Next slide. A couple of impacts a couple of things I want to talk about are improvements based off of these sort of impacts. One, we've started to work with the Texas Workforce Commission to expand advising services for students with learning disabilities. They're providing funds. We're getting training for that, and we're tracking that to see how we're doing with those students. In addition, we're going to be looking at expanding our partners to maybe HBCUs and Hispanic serving institutions to see if there's a better fit for the peers and the advisors who are there actually serving there in their local communities. So we're hoping that will also have an impact on these populations, which over the last few 18 months has been very difficult because we had to switch over from not only face-to-face, which a lot of these students require, but also to virtual advising with our advisors. And we were able to do that not only because we had this program, but also we have our ADV virtual advising platform that also helped for us to do that. So this program had a slow start in 2010 through 2012, but I think now we're catching wind and constantly seeing some sort of impact for these students that are positive. I'd at least like to take the opportunity to thank my staff who actually works hand in hand and started this since the implementation, Claudette Jenks, Lisa Pice, Deanna Foose, and most recently Laura Brennan for making this happening and staying on top of this project. So I'm available if you have any questions.
How many advisors do you have right now?
120.
120, so one per school?
One per school.
Okay.
And we found we actually, for some of these larger schools, you need more than that.
That's where I was,
but we've just tried to increase it to the best that we can.
And they're full-time at the school?
Full-time employees at the school.
That's a great program that probably needs some more muscle behind it.
The commissioner's nodding ahead. He's been trying to put more muscle behind it, so I appreciate his efforts on that.
I have a question about the whole advising counseling question and enrollments, because I've been helping some high schoolers with giving them some advice personally on applications, and some of them I felt were really behind, and I asked them how, have you not been meeting with your high school counselors on some of this stuff? And they said, not really, not because of COVID, and so I wonder how much of an impact the lack of face-to-face counseling has had on enrollment applications and all that.
Offhand, we're not sure. So we did see a substantial drop off, more than 6% of direct to college enrollments, and access to advising could be one of the drivers. We don't have data on that. Really, what we have are a lot of anecdotes about students. They're making use of the ADV chatbot. We were texting, I think, with more than 150,000 students this last fall, and then we have the virtual advisors are able to answer their specific questions, and we work in partnership with the schools to support the students as well as we can, but still that's not a substitute for that face-to-face interaction with the students. So we do think that was a significant driver, but we don't have data on that.
And also, just like I said, the type of population we're dealing with, they need that face-to-face. And with these advisors, traditionally, a lot of nonprofit programs only deal with certain students. Our advisors deal with the entire school. So the beauty of it is the ninth graders are seeing it. The 10th graders start to see them. 11th, and now you're having someone having some sort of college-going culture that we're trying to create, and they're having that expectation. And that was helpful to sometimes calling someone who's 22 during COVID versus your high school counselor, it was easier to reach out to those, and I think we saw some impact. So we're hopeful in the next report we'll see how that actually worked out.
And I see the categories that you're kind of tracking in terms of race or free lunch, and I wonder whether it's, if you're able to target students who have parents who have not attended college as a special category to counsel, because they're not getting the mentorship at home the way other kids might.
They're right. And a lot of them are first-time in college students, so we just know that based off the high schools that they're in, too. Thank you.
I had a question. This seems like an excellent program. I noticed that you've contracted with the 4 universities that you mentioned. Is there a way to broaden that from a regional perspective so that you have a better footprint that might serve a broader base?
That feels like a setup question. Absolutely. The commissioner has allocated some funds, thanks to the governor and the GEAR funds, to actually expand the program. So we're looking at a few institutions already to expand it, not only the diversity of the students at the college who might be the advisors, but also geographic. So there are a few HBCUs and Hispanic serving institutions for us to be able to expand it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adopt the report on effectiveness of the Advised Texas program? May I have a motion?
I'll move.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Agenda item 5G is consideration of approving the following requests for new degree programs. Agenda item 51G. 1 is consideration of approving the request from Texas A&M University for a Doctor of Nursing, DNP, degree with a major in nursing practice. Dr. Nancy Farrenwall, Dean and Professor, College of Nursing, Dr. Matthew Sorensen, Professor and PhD Program Coordinator, are available for questions and comments. Dr. Stacy Silverman will present this item and be available to answer questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Texas A&M University is seeking approval to offer a Doctor of Nursing Practice degree program. The proposed online postmaster's program would require 38 semester credit hours and would begin in fall 2022. The proposed program would prepare advanced practice nurses to become clinical leaders who are skilled in the translation of evidence into clinical practice. Workforce data suggests that there is a need for nurse practitioners. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, or BLS, the employment rate for nursing practice as a field is expected to grow at a much greater rate, 52.4%, than average for all occupations at 3.7%. The Texas Workforce Commission recognizes nursing practice as one of the fastest growing careers requiring a graduate degree in Texas and expects the state employment rate for nurse practitioners to grow at a faster 31.9% than the average for all occupations. Both the BLS and TWC anticipate an increased need for nurse practitioners through 2029. While workforce projections consider a master's degree sufficient for nurse practitioners, the American Association of Colleges of Nursing adopted a position statement identifying the Doctor of Nursing Practice, or DNP, as the most appropriate degree for advanced practice registered nurses to enter practice, and endorsed a position that the master's programs educating APRNs should transition to the DNP as the entry level. The proposed program would support the national movement toward making the DNP the necessary degree for advanced nursing practice. The institution will seek accreditation for the DNP program from the Commission on Collegiate Nursing Education, and the institution estimates that 5-year costs would total just over $4 million. The recommendation is approval, and we do have institutional representatives here to address any questions.
Good morning. Dr. Farrenwall, would you like to make comments?
Thank you, Madam Chairperson and members of the committee. My name is Nancy Fehrenwald. I'm the Dean of the College of Nursing at Texas A&M University. We're pleased to present this proposal for approval. The Doctor of Nursing Practice credential is the entry-level doctorate for a clinical doctorate in nursing, much like the PharmD, or Doctor of Pharmacy, has become the entry level for pharmacy, or the MD is the entry level for a medical doctor. So there's analogy there that this is the point of entry for advanced practice nursing. It is aligned with new competencies developed by the American Association of Colleges of Nursing, which has now level 1 and level 2 competencies. Level 1 being for the Bachelor of Science in Nursing, and level 2 being for advanced practice nursing roles. The DNP program timing is really perfect for us with our professional credentialing standards increasing. Thank you.
Dr. Sorensen, would you like to make comments?
I would just reinforce what's already been addressed. Part of the competencies is there's within the field, as a nurse practitioner myself, you're seeing a change in the amount of hours that are expected in terms of training, and to a point where it's more than doubling from basically 500 to a minimum of 1,000 hours of practice training. And this is really supporting that need for a practice doctorate to allow people the time to take sufficient coursework and to have sufficient clinical experiences to be able to accomplish those hours and demonstrate masterment of the competencies that are involved.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions?
I'd like to make a couple of comments, Dr. Fehrenwald and Dr. Sorensen. Thank you for bringing this up. As we all know, we have a shortage of nurses in our state, not only also pre-pandemic, not because of the pandemic, but this DNP program I think will help, obviously. So, you know, just talking, I talked to a lot of presidents of deans and health science centers and community colleges that have outstanding nursing programs. One in my area in South Texas that had 700 qualified nursing applicants, but that weren't accepted or couldn't because they didn't have room for them. So with the shortage of nursing and you being directly in there, what I'm hearing from the field, from CEOs of hospitals and practices, is that we have a large shortage of clinical teaching nurses willing to teach. So it's not a matter of having spaces or having slots for nurses, but, and of course, we know the pandemic, there's nurses that have decided to retire early and all kinds of situations where we're importing in Texas nurses. So this is an area I'm very familiar with and know a state representative who chairs public health who is a nurse. And so I've talked to several vice chancellors and chancellors about this issue. So you, in an educational standpoint, do you have any ideas or ways that we as a coordinating board can help the state in terms of looking short-term for nursing shortages? I mean, obviously this program that we're bringing is a step, and then long-term. Have you all discussed that? Have you thought about any ideas that you could provide us, really not only as a coordinating board, but as a state, to help solve our shortage of nurses and how we can implement high quality? And thank you, Dr. Sorensen, for bringing that up about the hours, because a lot of folks that are involved in education of health-related fields don't really understand the complexities of it. And so I appreciate you bringing this up. But can you address some of my comments, please?
Thank you. I'm happy to address your comments. When you talk about nursing shortage, what most people think about is pre-licensure nursing. So those new nurses who are entering the field, who are taking the registered nurse licensure exam and becoming licensed as a registered nurse in the state of Texas. However, as we have presented today, the advanced level of nursing practice has shortages as well. The solutions are complex. I do want to talk about the applicant issue. Application data is very messy because students apply to multiple programs in their quest to enter one. So those numbers are falsely inflated as students apply many places so that they can secure a seat in one nursing program. What limits us for education of students is clinical placements. Qualified nursing faculty, as you mentioned, is also top of the list.
So DNP education will help us to prepare future faculty as well, and it's part of the solution for pre-licensure nursing, but certainly clinical placements and being creative in what we do for clinical education is part of that solution as well. But we are very focused on growing enrollment. The state of Texas has invested a great deal of money into advancing nursing, and it's paid off. We have seen the enrollment and the graduation increase because of varying funding mechanisms that allow us as state colleges and universities to grow our enrollment and receive funding in order to support the additional clinical educators that we need. You are correct that overall nursing is in a crisis, and I think we know that across the nation. The pandemic has created situations of a great deal of stress in the profession, and not only for those nurses who are caring for COVID patients, for all nurses, as the demands for their work and their productivity have increased because of shortages in many places. The same is true for nursing faculty, because nursing faculty have had to flip from the traditional ways of teaching to other ways of teaching, and it's been challenging. So all of us are working on retention of our great faculty and keeping them from retiring.
Thank you for those comments. So it's a large issue. Obviously, it is a crisis. I would agree with you, and legislators that we work with and educators are trying to help solve this issue, and it's a crucial issue. As the commissioner and I travel around the state, we meet with economic development CEOs of top corporations and businesses, and their number one issue is a shortage of nurses, believe it or not. And because it affects business, it affects employers that are coming into areas, that are looking to come to areas. So education is the top of the list with healthcare, and that's what we're hearing, is that our people are telling us, our business folks, that we have a shortage of nurses and we have a healthcare crisis with the nursing shortages. And having to import nurses is very expensive, and so we talk to CEOs of hospitals. So we appreciate you bringing programs like this DNP, and we encourage those that are listening online that put programs together. We don't come up with these programs, by the way. The members, these are programs that are brought to our attention and the needs of the state, the needs of the areas and the regions of our state. So thank you again, and Texas A&M system and your institution for bringing this forward.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Just a comment. Great that you're coming forward with this. We all agree there's a great need for more nurses and quality nurses in the state of Texas. So carry on, please.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the request from Texas A&M University for a Doctor of Nursing, a DNP degree with a major in nursing practice?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Excuse me. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Agenda,
and thank you for being here. I was just going to let them.
Agenda item 5G2 is consideration of approving the request from Texas State University for a Bachelor's of Science, a BS in Mechanical Engineering. Dr. Denise Trout, President, Dr. Christine Haley, Dean College of Engineering, and Dr. Jesus Jimenez, School Director, Ingram School of Engineering, are available for questions and comments. Dr. Stacy Silverman will present the item and be available for questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Texas State University is seeking approval to offer a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. The proposed face-to-face program would prepare students for careers with a strong foundation in traditional mechanical engineering principles, combined with an education in designing and developing mechanical systems that are intelligent, interconnected, and integrated with the virtual world and emerging digital infrastructure known as Industry 4.0 tools and technologies. There are currently 22 public universities that offer a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering in Texas, and the proposed program would consist of 126 semester credit hours. Upon completion of the proposed program, students would be prepared to pass the Fundamentals of Engineering examination, which is the first step toward professional licensure. The institution will seek accreditation through ABET upon graduation of its first class. Data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics and the Texas Workforce Commission indicate national and state workforce need for mechanical engineers is being met. However, mechanical engineers are readily employed with a very low unemployment rate of less than 3%. The institution demonstrated workforce demand in the region, and the prospect for their future graduates getting jobs remains realistic despite production statewide. In accordance with the institution's proposed hiring schedule, Texas State will hire 11 core faculty members. 2 new core faculty members would be hired in years 1 and 2 of the program. 4 new core faculty would be hired in year 3 of the program, and 3 new core faculty members would be hired in the 4th year of the program. The institution estimates that 5-year costs would total just under $12.5 million. The recommendation is approval, and institutional representatives are available virtually to address your questions.
Dr. Trout?
Thank you, Chair Williams, and thank you, members of the Committee on Academics and Workforce Success, for giving us the opportunity to talk to you today about our proposal for an undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering. As has been stated, this mechanical engineering program, which is described as ME 4.0, would be the first program of its kind in Texas that's going to be built from the bottom up with a strong focus on Industry 4.0, which is likened to the fourth industrial revolution. And this kind of mechanical engineering program is expected to have a major impact on manufacturing. I think it's important today for me to say that the proposal is a result of a very inclusive and expansive strategic planning process at Texas State. During the last round of planning, the mechanical engineering program emerged as the university's highest priority for baccalaureate degree programs. And I want to stress that a very important component at Texas State of the planning process is the understanding that budgeting at the university is tied to planning. So when we internally approved the ME program as a priority, we committed to paying the $12.4 million that it'll cost to fully implement it. I also want to stress that Ingram Hall, which opened at Texas State in 2018, is the largest academic building on campus. It's 165 square feet of classrooms, laboratories, office space, and student support space. And this building was built with the hope that we would add mechanical engineering to the university. So we have about 70,000 square feet in Ingram Hall that will be devoted to our engineering programs. So there's no need for us to do any kind of renovation of Ingram Hall. And let me just end by saying that the corridor that Texas State is located on, the IH-35 corridor, which we call the Innovation Corridor, is increasingly emerging as one of the most thriving high-tech or Industry 4.0 hubs in the nation. And we think that the demand for our students graduating from the ME program is going to be strong and continue to remain strong in the future. Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Christine Haley, who is the Dean of our College of Science and Engineering, for some remarks.
Thank you, President Trout. Good morning, and I express my gratitude to the committee and Chair Williams for being able to talk a little bit about this proposed program. First of all, it aligns very much with the College of Science and Engineering strategic plan to prepare students for careers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and also to serve the citizens of Texas and the nation with both educational and research programs that facilitate innovation and economic development. As we noted in the proposal, mechanical engineering is one of the most versatile engineering disciplines. Our graduates will have a broad engineering skill set to fill workforce demands both in Central Texas as well as across Texas. They'll have a strong background in application of digital tools and technologies. And we see our graduates well prepared to become leaders to meet current and future workforce needs in the state of Texas. To ensure that the proposed program was viable, we actually engaged a group of external reviewers to review the proposal. These external reviewers consisted of members of Texas industry as well as members of universities. And I just want to quote that the external reviewers noted, the proposed undergraduate mechanical engineering program with its emphasis on Industry 4.0 technologies is highly innovative and forward-looking. The employment data presented indicates that its graduates will be in high demand from industries both inside Texas and across the country. The review team concludes that the proposal makes a compelling case for adding a mechanical engineering program with specific attention to Industry 4.0 technologies. And to provide further information about the proposed program, I would like to introduce Jesus Jimenez. He is the director of the Ingram School of Engineering that is housed within the College of Science and Engineering.
Thank you, President Trout and Dean Haley. On behalf of the Ingram School of Engineering, I want to thank the committee for allowing us to speak about this proposal for a new mechanical engineering undergraduate program. I want to point out that an essential part of the mission of the Ingram School of Engineering is to provide our students with exceptional engineering education. Our programs in electrical, industrial, manufacturing, and engineering are accredited by the Engineering Accreditation Committee of ABET, and the ME curriculum is designed so that it meets the criteria for ABET accreditation, as concluded by an external review from an experienced ABET evaluator. I also like to point out that the curriculum is augmented with an Industry 4.0 experience, which is a very unique theme we refer to as ME 4.0. The students will learn about core Industry 4.0 technologies such as big data, digital twin and simulation, robotics and artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, 3D printing, and the Internet of Things. As we build the proposed curriculum, we consider the availability of existing resources within our school and our college. We use as many existing courses and we leverage existing facilities primarily in the Ingram Hall. The addition of the mechanical engineering into our current portfolio of engineering programs will generate a stronger synergy in the school. The faculty members will be able to create teaching and research programs and have opportunities for cross-disciplinary work, which will enhance the student learning experience. Another important component of our school's mission is to serve the state of Texas and the nation by creating highly skilled, diverse, and motivated professionals capable of technological innovation. 98% of our students are from Texas, and a great majority remain in Texas after completing their undergraduate engineering degrees. We anticipate that the companies who have engineering talent knowledgeable about Industry 4.0 will receive the benefits for economic development. Consequently, there will be payouts for the competitiveness of the state of Texas. Again, I'd like to thank the committee for this opportunity, and I turn the program back to President Trout.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
I'd like to make a comment, if I may. Thank you for bringing this program, very innovative program, to the coordinating board. And President Trout, I've known you for a few years. I wanted to congratulate you. I think I have heard that you're stepping down, retiring at the end of this academic program, May of 22. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, it is.
Well,
Thank
you for all your service and the great programs you've brought before the coordinating board and the great job, your leadership over your career at Texas State. And we wish you the best in case this is the last time we have a program with you presenting for us. But I just wanted to thank you personally as well, meeting you at events and meetings. And You've done a great job, and the Texas State system is proud of you, and Texas State University continues to do really well with your leadership and continued leadership through May. So wish you the best in case we don't see a program proposal within now and the end of the year. But thank you again for your leadership, not only for Texas State, but higher education in the state of Texas.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. Thanks so much.
I have a question. Sure. And it's, I guess, a question for the board as well as the university. I think this is a great program. I think there's a huge need as we're trying to grow our advanced manufacturing industry in El Paso and Juarez. We see a great need for this, so congratulations on this program. The question I have is more on how we promote these degree programs and jobs to our youth, right? When you see mechanical engineering, you know, if I were a student looking around the state at what programs I wanted to go into, and I think I had the same question about biomedical engineering. There's so many different disciplines and types of biomedical engineering. How are we communicating to kids what exactly this means, how it's different from the other ME degrees, and what job opportunities are available to them?
Who would like to take the question?
And Hallie, can you answer that question?
Yeah.
Sure. I didn't know if the question was directed to us or to the board more broadly. I think it's a very fair question. I'm actually a mechanical engineer, and through my career, I've often been asked for advice on how to fix a car. And you would really not want me to give you that kind of advice. And I put that out there as just some of the lack of understanding of what mechanical engineers do, whether that be with or without sort of this digital tool enhancement. And I suspect Chair Williams can also speak to this because she's also a mechanical engineer. I think it's very, very important. And my experience with young people is we have to be really engaged with a lot of the social media, and we've got to start with high school counselors, but also high school students. We've got to have a lot of tours of our facility. We need to have a lot of peer-to-peer discussion from young young students talking about what it is they're doing and how excited they are, all the way to advisory boards who become our champions and go out across the state of Texas talking to industry about how great this 4.0 idea is. Those are just some thoughts I've had. It requires a lot of marketing, and I think we tend to be humble as engineers. My husband says that's not the case, that we're really very arrogant, but we tend to be humble. We tend to just be workers who don't spend enough time marketing, and we probably need the advice of some good marketing people to help us do a better job. That's my comment. I would welcome comments from others.
I concur. For years, my mom's friends thought I drove a train for a living. Said, why does she want to go to school to be a mechanical engineer? They drive trains. Why does she want to do that? And my mom had a very, very good comeback for them. She said, did you know that the basis of one of the things that a mechanical engineer does, they do a lot of things, but one of the things that they normally do is develop air conditioning. And in Texas, we need air conditioners. So she is going to always be employed. Yeah. So, long story short, I agree with you that we do tend to be humble. We tend to not market like we should, but this program is exciting, definitely innovative, moving us into the rebranding of what we do for a living every day, and it's also getting us in the social media virtual aspect of engineering, and we have to have that if we're going to stay relevant. So I'm excited about the program. I'm excited about the just the opportunity to know about it and to be involved. And I will end by telling Dr. Trout that we're going to miss you. I did enjoy working with you for several years, and you know we used to keep it a secret, but she was my favorite president. So don't tell anybody that. But thank you guys for being here. And does anybody else have any questions?
I was just going say, for those of you that don't know, Ms. Williams was the former chair of the Texas State System Board of Regents.
Yeah,
So
I was
she
for
worked very
several
closely with Texas State University.
Yeah.
Well, thank you once again for being here. I really appreciate it. So one thing I did want to add, just from my perspective as a student, I know we were kind of wondering what's the way to sort of connect these careers to these students, especially these really specialized careers, because it's the unique version of the degree from what I'm understanding, because it's a little bit more advanced and innovative. Mm-hmm. In my experience as a student, the easiest way to get kids plugged into a company or some people who are looking for those jobs is forms of internships. They're very helpful because I know in a lot of career fields, that's how you get started anyway. You start with an internship. I don't know if maybe they could do a summer program or something like that, but if the university could find a way to directly connect these students with companies that they could go on to work for, I think that'd be a quick, direct pathway for them.
Absolutely, and one of the things that we're doing, you mentioned internships, is because of the pandemic and the new ways that we've developed in doing businesses. One of the things that we've actually started at our company is doing virtual job fairs, and we have them every month, I believe, and we are reaching out to a lot of the institutions saying, you know, hey, we're here and we're hiring various different engineers. We hire pretty much all of the disciplines, and that has been very, very helpful in helping us attract students that we normally wouldn't attract into the workforce. So I'm glad you brought that up. And internships, we are offering a lot of them, as many companies are, and especially since we've learned a new way of recruiting and doing business that I expect it'll be 100-fold going forward. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and certainly endorse your point, Matthew, but on the internships and then also I'd say on the advising front to Ms. Schwartz's point. So through our collaborations with the Workforce Commission, we're going to be working on both of those fronts. So we're working closely, especially with Commissioner Demerson, is passionate about internships, and we are working on convening with the Workforce Commission specifically around internships. We have some funding that was allocated to us by the governor and the legislative leadership specifically around work-based learning, and we are going to need to be working even more with employers to expand those opportunities. Ideally, not just as a sort of bolt-on to programs, but incorporated into the design of these academic programs, which is harder to do, but very beneficial for the students. So they've got a clear line of sight, just not just to completing the credential, but also to a great job opportunity. And in the first place, it's going to be important that we bolster our college and career advising from secondary schools all the way through our post-secondary institutions, so students can understand, hear the range of job opportunities that are available to you through these programs. Unless students have been exposed to engineers, unless they have a family member or someone else they knew, a lot of students would have no idea what engineers do and how many potential applications of those skills there might be for job opportunities. And that's something that the coordinating board has now a unique opportunity to work on through the Tri-Agency Initiative and also through our Texas On-Course initiative, where we're directly plugged in to the secondary as well as post-secondary college and career advising.
Yeah, Mr. Clemmer, our new member, is an engineer as well. So we have a lot of folks here on our board that have experience in that. And I also wanted to mention for the new members, our student member of the coordinating board, Matthew Smith, is currently a student at Texas State University, and he's very involved in student government there. So we have a little theme here going with Texas State today.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the request from Texas State University for a Bachelor's of Science in Mechanical Engineering?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you
Thank
all
you.
for being.
Thank you
Mhm.
very much.
Agenda item 5G3 is consideration of approving the request from Texas Tech University Health Science Center for a Doctor of Science in Rehabilitation Sciences. Dr. Carrie Dickerson, Provost and Coordinating Board SACS COC Liaison, and Dr. Stephen Sawyer, PT, Executive Associate Dean, Chair Department of Rehabilitation Sciences, and Dr. Brad Allen, PT, Program Director, are available for questions and comments. Dr. Stacy Silverman will present this item and be available for any questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center is seeking approval to offer a Doctor of Science degree program in Rehabilitation Sciences to be delivered primarily online in a hybrid format. The proposed post-professional program would require 70 semester credit hours for students entering with a bachelor's degree and 48 semester credit hours for students entering with a master's degree, with a beginning start date of fall 2022. The proposed program would offer students the option to pursue one of two tracks, clinical research or clinical education. Both tracks would require students to complete dissertations. Data show that there's a greater than average need for rehabilitation sciences professionals in the fields of physical therapy, occupational therapy, and athletic training. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, there would be a 17% increase in the rehab science specialties of, again, physical therapy, occupational therapy, and athletic training. Texas Workforce Commission anticipates a combined average of 21% growth in the rehab sciences specialties for the decade of 2019 through 2029. Currently, there are no bachelor's, master's, or doctoral level rehab sciences program in Texas, and in accordance with the institution's proposed hiring schedule, Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center will hire 2 additional core faculty members in years 3 and 5. The institution estimates the 5-year cost would total just over $2.3 million, or actually just under $2.3 million, and the recommendation is for approval. We do have institutional representatives virtually available to address your questions. Dr. Dickerson?
Good morning. Good morning. On behalf of TTUHSC, I would like to thank this committee for your consideration of the proposed program. As a health sciences center, a critical component of our mission is to educate students to become collaborative healthcare professionals. The proposed SCD in rehabilitation sciences does just that, with students in physical therapy, occupational therapy, and athletic training together in an interprofessional learning environment. With that said, our faculty most certainly have the support of administration in establishing this program, and I would encourage you to hear from Dr. Brad Allen if you would like to know a little bit more.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you to the committee for allowing us to bring this program before you. It's exciting for me. I've been part of a doctorate of science in physical therapy for several years now, started back in 2002. And we're excited because this new program is going to take and expand this doctorate of science to include all professions. And I say all professions, 2 additional professions, occupational therapists and athletic trainers, and address 3 professions that help people that are in pain or have trouble moving. And so with this new program, we truly believe that that purposeful learning experiences and interprofessional collaboration and interactions lead to refinement. And it's the refinement that we see from a terminal degree that leads to innovation. It leads to new thought processes, to new treatments and new opportunities. And so we're very excited about this program. And again, thank you for considering it today.
Thank you. Dr. Sawyer, would you like to have comments? I think, Dr. Sawyer, I think you're on mute.
I've been doing Zoom for 2 years, and I'm still doing that once in a while. My apologies. I thank the coordinating board for reviewing this proposal. We're very excited about it. I think it's important to recognize that this is a terminal degree for people who already have a license and are practicing as physical therapists, as our program has been doing for 20 years. And now we want to add in the ability of licensed occupational therapists and athletic trainers to also participate with many of the advantages that Dr. Dixon and Dr. Allen mentioned. We're really interested in this, and we think it's a great opportunity for Texas for two reasons. One is it will develop master clinicians beyond their entry-level education and their practice as they learn advanced skills. And secondly, as has been mentioned before, many of the clinical programs in nursing, for example, but also now in physical therapy, occupational therapy, and in the future, no doubt, athletic training, are transitioning or have transitioned from a master's level, entry level to doctorate. And in the case of physical therapy and occupational therapy, the accreditation standards are that at least half of their faculty have a terminal degree, such as a PhD, an SCD, or an EDU. So, an EDD. So I think this is going to also help us in the sense of we're developing future faculty, and many of our graduates from the SCD PT program have gone on to become faculty in DPT programs, and our expectation is that will also happen with our licensed occupational therapists and athletic trainers who graduate. So I think it's going to be great with respect to developing master clinicians and also developing future faculty for these entry-level degrees.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions for Dr. Silverman or any of the institutional representatives? Do I have a motion to approve the request from Texas Tech University Health Science Center for a Doctor of Science in Rehabilitation Sciences?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is item 5G4, is the consideration of approving the request from Texas Women's University for a Doctor of Philosophy in Education, Leadership, and Organization. Dr. Lisa Huffelman, Dean of College of Professional Education, Dr. Carolyn Capinas, sorry for messing up your name, Provost and Executive Vice President, and Dr. Holly Henson Thomas, Vice Provost for Research and Innovation and Dean of Graduate School, are available for questions and comments. Dr. Tracy Silverman will present this item and be available to answer questions. Dr. Silverman.
Texas Women's University is seeking approval to offer a Doctor of Philosophy degree in Education, Leadership, and Organization. The proposed program would prepare students for educational leadership roles in early childhood through 12th grade, higher education, and interdisciplinary nonprofit settings. The anticipated start date would be January 2022. The proposed fully online program would require a minimum of 75 semester credit hours post-master's degree. Most students would be full-time practicing educators and enroll in the program part-time. Workforce data suggests that there's a need for additional educational administrators. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics projects a 9.5% increase in school administrator positions during the 2019 through 2029 decade. The Texas Workforce Commission anticipates an 18% growth in school administrator positions for the decade 2018 through 2028. In Texas, there are 30 public and independent institutions with doctoral programs within the same zip code in educational administration and leadership. There are 4 programs in the educational leadership within 60 miles of Denton, with the nearest program at the University of North Texas, which is just under 2 miles away. However, the institution has made the case that they have a regional need and they have a group of educators that would be interested in pursuing the degree, as it is going to be offered online. The institution has no plans to hire additional faculty during the first 5 years of the program, and it will attract students early on in their educational careers and be available as an additional option for students to pursue advanced education through that primarily digital format. The institution estimates the 5-year cost would total just over $2.5 million, and the recommendation is approval, and we do have institutional representatives virtually available to address any questions.
Thank you. Dr. Huffman, would you like to make comments?
If I might interrupt, unfortunately, Dr. Huffman cannot be here because of a family emergency. I'm Carolyn Capinas, the provost at Texas Women's University, so I'm happy to start with my remarks if that's acceptable to the board.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to comment on the proposed PhD in Education, Leadership, and Organization. Leadership is a central part of the strategic plan at Texas Women's University. The Jane Nelson Institute for Women's Leadership was established in 2018 at Texas Women's University with state investment for scholarship, research, and support for preparing women to take on successful roles in business and public service. We are very excited about this doctoral program as it fits squarely within our university's mission. As outlined by Dr. Silverman, the PhD in Education, Leadership, and Organization is a 75-hour doctoral program that prepares students for leadership roles in education, both pre-K through 12, as well as higher education, and community-based leadership in nonprofit settings. The interdisciplinary nonprofit track in our program sets us apart from other doctoral programs in educational leadership. The goal of this program is to develop future leaders who are knowledgeable about organizational leadership, the superintendency, leadership in higher education, and other interdisciplinary nonprofit organizations, such as the United Way. The training afforded by a PhD program fosters the ability to make data-based decisions, thereby increasing accountability with an understanding of organization-based leadership principles. The online delivery format will allow us to expand our reach to place-bound students and busy professionals. As I mentioned earlier, unfortunately, our Dean of the College of Professional Education, Dr. Lisa Huffman, is unable to be here because of a family emergency. Joining me today are two other Texas Women's University representatives, and they include Dr. Jennifer Martin, Executive Vice Provost, and Dr. Holly Hanson-Thomas, Vice Provost for Research and Innovation and Dean of the Graduate School. Dr. Hanson-Thomas will share more specifically about the online delivery format of this degree.
Thank you, Dr. Capinas, and good afternoon, good morning, afternoon to the board. We want to thank you for considering our proposal. As our provost, Dr. Capinas, mentioned, this proposed PhD in Education, Leadership, and Organization, or ELO, will prepare graduates for educational leadership roles in multiple arenas. We believe that the 100% online format of this degree is a key feature and can bring this needed and indeed desired program to those busy professionals in our area of North Texas and beyond. Texas Women's University has the experience, infrastructure, and the expertise to deliver online graduate programs. Many of our faculty are Quality Matters certified and are skilled and well-positioned to teach online and promote interaction in a virtual format. Many of us have had to learn that recently, but our faculty have been working on this for a number of years. We offer scholarships and assistantships to online students, such as the WIM Mentoring Grant through the Jane Nelson Institute for Women's Leadership. We offer multiple supports for research, including an online dissertation boot camp, the 3-minute thesis competition online, research funding through our Center for Student Research, and statistical and methodological support through our Center for Research Design and Analysis. And all of this support is offered virtually, in a hybrid format, and in a face-to-face format for those who are interested on all 3 of our Texas Women's University campuses. Mentoring through Zoom interactions, doctoral student groups held virtually and through email, as well as virtual defenses, are all examples of how this doctorate will be successfully carried out, we believe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I see one other person joined us. Would you like to make comments? You're on mute.
I'm here to answer questions if there are any. I don't have any additional comments. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Does anyone have any comments or questions?
I have a couple of comments, if I may.
Sure.
You know, there's this question about quality and online doctorate programs in higher education right now nationally. And, you know, I think your program's great, by the way. One of your former regents is a personal friend of mine, and one of our former coordinating board members is a regent there at Texas Women's University. And I know Senator Jay Nelson has been a big proponent of higher education, and I was excited. In fact, a friend of mine last week sent me information about your school and that institute and the great work that they're doing that lives in Dallas. And so I'm familiar with all the great work y'all are doing, and I applaud you for bringing this outstanding program and leadership, as the provost mentioned at the beginning, the leadership and the context of providing access to people that are busy working, that have the level of need for this type of program is outstanding. But my question is that I get as I meet with presidents and chancellors of the community colleges and higher education, not only here in the state, mainly in the state, but also nationally, is this question about doctoral programs and online education and the quality. And I had several chairs recently of the coordinating board and higher education legislators mention that, Fred, you know, we want to make sure that the coordinating board has highest quality possible, which we all agree we need to provide the best credentials for our students, whether it's mid-career or now with the pandemic. We have a lot of folks that are open to these online programs. So I was wondering if you could address that when you have those questions that come up.
I'm happy to jump in here and address that. So I can tell you I'm a former graduate school dean. I've been a dean at 2 other institutions. So this is this is near and dear to my heart. While I understand the concerns about quality with regard to online education, we know that many people just cannot interrupt their busy lives to move to a place in order to pursue a degree. And the wonderful thing about online education, and I think we've really seen this in the pandemic, is that it meets students where they are. So it allows the flexibility of students to have education be on their terms and their schedule. And the important thing is we all know that you can't just take an existing class that was face-to-face and put it online without making any modifications. Of course, it has to be retooled to fit in an online format. And I would say our institution is very prepared to do this. We have an entire group that is dedicated to teaching and learning at a distance. We have educational designers that work very closely with our faculty to make sure it's a high quality experience. And the other thing I would add is I would say the mode of delivery does not guarantee the quality of the experience. It's the dedication of the faculty member, it's the training, and it's the thoughtful approach and in delivering that course that really makes for a high quality education experience. And I don't know if my colleagues would like to add anything else.
No, I think that's good. I mean, I'm a big proponent. I think you're exactly right. I think it just, and even from the student perspective, it's how you put that program. You know, your access to it, but is great. And I totally am a big proponent for it. And it's just, I think, the stressing of the faculty members as far as the quality and making sure that we have the rigor. And that's only my point. And like I said, I'm a big proponent of online education. And I think programs like these do allow a lot of access, and that's what the coordinating board mission is: access, affordability, lack of duplication, and those are the things that we provide. So we appreciate you bringing programs like this to us. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the request from Texas Women's University for a Doctor of Philosophy, PhD in Education, Leadership, and Organization?
So moved.
May I have a second? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mhm. Agenda item 5G5 is consideration of approving the request from the University of Texas at San Antonio for a Doctor of Philosophy, a PhD in the School of Psychology. Dr. Sharon L. Nichols, Professor and Chair, and Dr. Jeremy Sullivan, Professor, and Dr. Victor Veriel, Associate Professor, are available for questions and comments. Dr. Stacy Silverman will present this item and be available to answer questions. Dr. Silverman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The University of Texas at San Antonio is seeking approval to offer a Doctor of Philosophy in School Psychology. The proposed face-to-face program would prepare graduates for careers as scientists, practitioners, and licensed psychologists. If approved, UT San Antonio will seek accreditation from the National Association of School Psychologists and the American Psychological Association. The proposed PhD program would consist of a minimum of 54 semester credit hours for students entering with a master's degree and 87 semester credit hours for students entering with a bachelor's degree. The curriculum would adhere to the APA requirements, which includes practicum hours and a dissertation. Workforce data suggests there is a need for school psychologists. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics projections suggest there would be a 3% increase in school psychology positions for the 2019 through 2029 decade, and Texas Workforce Commission anticipates a 16% growth in school psychology positions for the decade 2018 through 2028. Currently, there are 5 public and independent universities in Texas that offer the PhD in school psychology. In accordance with the institution's proposed hiring schedule, UT San Antonio will hire 2 core faculty members. One core faculty member would be hired in the first year and one in the second year of the program. The institution estimates that 5-year costs would total just over $4 million, and the recommendation is for approval with institutional representatives here virtually to address any of your questions.
Dr. Nichols.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And thank you for letting us attend virtually and for the work that the coordinating board has provided. And I also want to emphasize we did have a really positive external review team come in and meet with us. And these were school psychologists from other institutions who deemed this to be a really a good place to put another PhD program in school psychology, given there is not one in South Texas at this time, and there is such a high need with the many students we have here and the large school districts we have here. And so thank you for your time, and here to answer any other questions.
Thank you. Dr. Jeremy Sullivan, would you like to make comments?
Oh, I would just add to that some recent figures for the school psychologist to student ratio in Texas is well beyond the recommended ratio of 1 to 500, which is a recommendation from our parent organization, the National Association of School Psychologists. In Texas, the average across the state is 1 school psychologist per 2,700 students. And at the national level, that ratio is better. It's 1 out of 1,200. So at both the national level and the state local level, there are many opportunities to chip away at that ratio and provide our students with the academic and mental health resources that they need. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Villarreal, would you like to make comments?
Oh, thank you.
As a faculty representative that would be responsible for implementing and teaching in this program, and also myself as a licensed specialist in school psychology and licensed psychologist, I'd just like to offer my full support for this program. As previously noted, the proposed PhD builds upon an existing master's program that we have that has been quite successful and very effective in providing services for our schools and our community. And we've designed the program to align closely with standards for graduate training from our major professional organizations. I do want to just add to what Dr. Sullivan mentioned in saying that the program would allow our future graduates to address the very high mental health needs, as well as general and special education needs of children in our schools and children that are seeking services in community mental health settings. We have specialization tracks that are going to be particularly beneficial for special populations, such as English language learners and students that have very high needs for intensive behavior support. So I think there's really great potential for our program. And just to add to what Dr. Nichols mentioned, I'm grateful for your review of our program, and we look forward to just continuing to build our opportunity and capacity to serve children and schools and our community.
Thank you. Members, do we have any questions or any comments? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the request from the University of Texas at San Antonio for a Doctor of Philosophy, a PhD in Education, Leadership, and Organization? May I have a motion? May I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. The next agenda item is 5H, and that is lunch. Members, we will now break for lunch. No public business or public policy over which the board has supervision or control will be discussed. We intend to reconvene in approximately 30 minutes at 12:45. Thank you. back. All right. We are on agenda item 5I are the proposed rules. Agenda item 5I1 and 5I2 were approved on consent. Agenda item 5I3 is the consideration of possible adoption of the proposed amendments to the Texas Administrative Code, Title 19, Part 1, Chapter 4, Subchapter D, Section 4.84 of Board Rules concerning institutional agreements for dual credit programs. Dr. Stacy Silverman will present this item and be available for questions. Dr. Silverman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The proposed amendments are based on legislative changes made by Senate Bill 1277, which requires specific criteria be included in a dual credit agreement established between an institution of higher education and a school district. The proposed amendment requires that a dual credit agreement designate at least one employee of the district or institution as responsible for academic advising to a student who enrolls in dual credit courses before the student begins the course. This change should help ensure that students who enroll in dual credit courses take classes that will facilitate their educational pursuits. It will also help limit students taking courses that won't apply to future degree paths. The recommendation is for approval, and no comments were received on the proposed amendment.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for Dr. Silverman? Okay. Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the adoption of the proposed amendments to the Board Rule 4.84 concerning constitutional amendments for dual credit programs?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next up is agenda item 5I4, which was approved on consent. Moving on to agenda item 5I5 is consideration and possible adoption of proposed amendments to Board Rule 7.7 concerning institutionals accredited by board-recognized accreditors and Rule 7.8 concerning institutions not accredited by board-recognized accreditors. Dr. Tina Jackson will present this item and be available for comments. Dr. Jackson.
Hello, Madam Chair and committee members. Senate Bill 1490 requires applicants for certificates of authority to provide information regarding capacity and market need, faculty and resources, meeting standards for professional degree programs, and sufficient placement for field-based learning. For reference, these restrictions were contained in Senate Bill 1490, enacted by the 87th Texas legislature. A certificate of authorization grants accredited degree granting post-secondary institutions or out-of-state public post-secondary institutions authorization to offer degrees and courses leading to degrees at a Texas location. A certificate of authority provides the guidelines and timelines for application processes for institutions seeking accreditation. An institution can hold a series of certificates of authority for up to 8 years as it seeks recognized accreditation. During that period of time, the coordinating board maintains oversight to ensure the institutions meet standards for operations and moving towards accreditation. The revisions serve two purposes. First, to add the restrictions for authorizing professional degrees under certificates of authorization for accredited institutions and under certificates of authority for institutions not yet accredited. Second, the revisions clarify or correct rule language and put processes into the rules for review of application and approval of institutional closures. We worked closely with our institutional partners to ensure language included in Senate Bill 1490 addressed institutional and agency concerns around these types of certificates, while ensuring we met the requirements outlined in the State Authorization Reciprocity Agreement, or SARA, which Texas is a member of. This concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for Dr. Jackson? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adopt the proposed amendment to Board Rule 7.7 concerning institutions accredited by board-recognized accreditors and Rule 7.8 concerning institutions not accredited by a board-recognized accreditor?
So moved.
May I have a second? I'll second. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? The motion passes. Next is agenda item 5I6. It's concerning the possible adoption of a proposed amendment to Board Rule 9.673 concerning baccalaureate degree programs at public junior colleges. Dr. Stacy Silverman will present this item and be available for questions. Dr. Silverman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The proposed amendments are the result of passage of House Bills 3348 and 885, which allow public junior colleges to apply for coordinating board approval to offer bachelor's degree programs if the college district has a taxable property valuation of at least $4 billion in the previous year, and there are not four-year institutions of higher education within the same county. It also increases the number of bachelor's completion programs that public junior colleges may offer from 3 to 5 for all junior colleges that seek to offer a bachelor's degree program. That concludes my remarks, and no comments were received on this as well.
Okay. All right. Are there any comments or questions for Dr. Silverman? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adopt the proposed amendments to Board Rule 9.673 of Board Rules concerning baccalaureate degree programs at public junior colleges? May I have a motion?
So moved.
May I have a second? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Agenda item number 6 is adjournment. If there is no further discussion, may I have a motion to adjourn? May I have a second?
Second.
We are adjourned. All in favor say aye. Aye. Now we're adjourned. Now we'll take a short break to allow staff to set up for the Agency Operations Committee meeting. Members remain on the call. The next meeting will begin shortly.